Hello and welcome to Beyond Resistance Pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power in red communities and start winning. I'm Sarah Schultz.
And I'm Jennifer Austin.
And Jennifer, what has you fired up these days?
Okay, mine is a mixed bag. I and some other local leaders have been getting some feedback about our leadership styles, and it's definitely not great. So kind of the two-sided thing of this is I don't necessarily agree with everything that they're saying. I think that they're coming from a place of bias. But I think it's a good exercise for me and other people and for anybody else out there to really think about the criticism that's coming in. Where's it coming from? How can, if necessary, how can you apply it to what you're doing? The things, like look at them. Are they like a hill to die on? And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. So yeah, like it sometimes being right is not as important as being a community and we're moving forward and making change and like making sure that we're staying together. Now there are some hills I'm gonna die on. Yeah. I am, and I think that they are completely wrong on. But then there's other ones it's like, yeah, I totally see their point. I'm not happy about it. And I think that it's pearl clutching at a time that people are dying. And so like, I'm in that, oh my God, people are dying. Why are we worrying about that silly thing? But if it's going to prevent people from being part of the movement or, listening to the movement, like if it's a roadblock, then roadblocks need to go. So you really have to look at your values and like, does this align with my values so much that it's a core part of me and I'm not going to let it go? Or is it like not that important? You know, it's just a matter of evaluating the feedback in a way. And it doesn't mean that your feelings aren't hurt. It doesn't mean that you're not upset. It doesn't, and sometimes as leaders, you have to be the bigger person and be like, I'm still right. But if this is going to prevent progress, then I have to let it go. And I would even say that like, I think we mentioned this before, and I'll maybe let you talk more about this, but our recent Senate primary, we still have somebody that hasn't endorsed the winner.
Yeah, has not like gracefully kind of pushed support over to the winner of the primary, like for the sake of winning the general, which is so critical. That's been so unfortunate to see. Like the statements that are coming out are more about like how they were wronged in the primary than they are about how we need to come together and win this thing, because literally the balance of the power in the Senate is at stake. And that's been telling and unfortunate to see.
Yeah. And it's something that I'm grappling with right now. I mean, you got some text messages last night from me. And it's something that I'm just like, I'm really trying myself to be like, what does being a good leader mean?
Yeah.
And if I cannot get past this thing, then I'm not a good leader. And we should probably look at some of our other leaders and say, you can't get past this thing, and that's why you didn't win.
Yeah.
That's right. People could tell that this is not what was going to be best for our community.
Yeah.
And votes matter. And at the end, votes win. Like, I wasn't happy that Trump won, and no, I wasn't going to congratulate him or anything. I mean, it was devastating, absolutely devastating, but I accepted that he won.
Yeah. Right. And just like in the primary, like this is the voice of the Democratic voters in our area. Like you have to respect that sort of process and hopefully move on and, throw your support and all of your energy behind winning in the general. But like this idea of feedback, like I'm bringing it to the point of our pod and like trying to help folks build blue power in red communities. Whenever you step into a leadership position, you expose yourself to feedback. And it's hard to take if you're not used to it. It's hard to take if you uh in these positions that we're in, where it's like literally we're volunteering our time
Yeah.
and talent and energy, and we're diverting time from our families to try to step into these leadership roles, and then you get feedback that one little thing that you did is such a big deal to the
Hmm.
folks that are kind of you think are behind you, and that's really hard to take. What I would say, like, it's a great like leadership test, right? To be like, yes, like blow off the steam about it, right? Like,
Hmm.
ah, this was annoying and on and on, and find like safe places to do that. But then, like you said, like, what can I take from this? Where is it coming from? Is this a hill I want to die on? Is so, so important because it's going to happen over and over again. One I don't know, metaphor or saying that my friend Roxy always uses is that feedback is like a chicken foot. That's what she says. She says chicken feet, mostly bones, right? If you go to
Hmm.
like a restaurant, you order chicken feet, but there is a little meat on them, right?
Hmm.
There's a
Yes.
little bit. And so even if your feedback that you're getting is a chicken foot, find the meat on it,
Hmm.
find
Yep.
the value in it. Most of these folks are coming from a place of like they care a ton about it.
Hmm.
This is not maliciousness that's in action right now for the
There might be
most
a little
part. There's
bit there.
probably anger and frustration. There's
There's
probably not
definitely some
maliciousness.
bias from hearing some secondhand stuff and not coming to me or those people that were talked about to
Yeah.
find out anything else. They just took somebody else's
Yeah.
secondhand information and said, that's it.
Yeah, so this is what I'll say to that, right? And I can get real academic about this because I literally teach feedback. I do feedback trainings across the country in my day job, but what I'll say about that is like when feedback is coming, there's a receiver and there's a sender. And both of those roles can think about how they're receiving or delivering feedback in a way
Hmm.
that's going to best land and best be the right vehicle for this feedback to be as useful as possible, right?
Hmm.
So like we've talked so far about the receiver. How do you as a leader getting feedback, you know, internalize, take what you can, figure out if it's a hill to die on, like all those things are super important. But as a sender, you have an important role too. And that's not to just like burp out feedback all the time.
Hmm.
That's not to use the phrase, can I be honest, as a euphemism for can I just be mean to you right now? Like to be like gentle in your feedback and thoughtful
Hmm.
to and most important in all of that is to hold on to curiosity. Like when you hear a secondhand thing about something that somebody might have said a couple of weeks ago, rather than saying, "Oh my God, that's terrible," hold on to curiosity about that and be like, "Oh, that doesn't sound like her." Like, I
Hmm.
wonder where that was coming from. I wonder what the context was for that. Do you know what? Instead of internalizing it the way that it was presented to me, I'm going to stay curious about it, and then I'm going to go ask her about it. Hey, I
Hmm.
heard this, and I wonder, did you say it that way? Was it in a context that I don't understand? Like, what did you mean by that? Like, hold on to that curiosity. If you respect the person you're giving feedback to, then you're going to hold the space for them to
Hmm.
understand where it's coming from and to explain what's going on. So that's one. And the other thing is, like, sometimes we feel very passionate about the feedback that we're giving to our leaders, and we lose sight of the big picture, right?
Hmm.
So like if we're going at our leaders with some feedback about a thing that happened months and months ago and we're just still really upset about it, like is that worth a hill that you want that leader to die on, right? Like is it worth our movement to like continue to beat up on this one issue, to approach them with anger and frustration again months and months later, and it might just erode that person's will to continue to do this really important work. They're not fucking getting paid for this,
Yep.
like,
They're not
so
machines.
They're not machines. They're not getting paid for it. Sure, you have some feedback for them, but like if you could present it in a way that is like, hey, because we all really care about what we're doing, I just want you to know that I heard this or I experienced this in this way. Can we please talk about it? I want to offer you the space and
Mm-hmm.
time to give me your perspective versus like what you did was wrong and here's how it was wrong and here's the
Mm-hmm.
impact that I'm perceiving that's going to happen and I'm going to blow that impact up as negatively as possible. Like our leaders in this space, our volunteers, they're gonna stop doing this if like they're getting hit from like the the conservative red side of things all the time, and then they turn to what they feel like should be friendly spaces,
Mm-hmm.
and they're getting hit again. Like
Yeah.
who wants to stand up for that for forever and ever? That's a freight train to burnout city. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is gonna happen. And we have to like within the Democratic Party, yes, have these like conversations that are crucial and courageous, but in a way that doesn't alienate and just like turn people off that we absolutely need in this work.
Yeah, and that's one thing that like after yesterday's session, and I've had multiples of these sessions, um, and it's a handful of people. It's not even like a wide swath. They claim that they represent a wide swath, but I don't know that. And they could. I don't know. So you kind of just have to take it for what it is, but it's like some of them came with curiosity and
Mhm.
here's my concerns. And that was it was much easier to receive that
Mhm.
than it was the people that came with I already have my mind made up and I'm
Yeah.
still mad at you about something from months ago and I'm going to take episode this like 1, 2 and 3 that happened excuse me and I'm going to completely ignore 4 through 99
Yeah.
where you did
Years
the
and
things that
years
I
of
wanted.
work. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you're taking my entire body of work and boiling it down into these like three things um that are circumstantial to the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just really frustrating and I could have taken it better and my other fellow leaders could have taken it better. It could have been sent better. It could have been received better. So yeah, it's a learning process and it's something that we all have to
Yep.
learn as leaders and as people that are giving that feedback.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And it's happening everywhere. And to bring it to what we're here for, like if you're looking for to build blue power in communities that are red, you're going to start stepping into leadership spaces, and you're not always going to be loved. Like
Mm-hmm.
even by people who are aligned with your values for the
Yep.
most part, because the Democratic Party is a spectrum of beliefs. We've got very progressive spaces, we have very moderate spaces, centrist spaces. And so not everyone agrees all the time. Not everyone
Mm-hmm.
falls in line all the time. And so that's totally going to happen. And building your like muscle and practice around receiving feedback is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Is really important because otherwise it fractures and it just can't possibly be as strong or as long lasting as it would be otherwise. So that's one
Yeah.
piece of advice for folks who are kind of in this organizing and activist space around feedback because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Awesome.
So what are you fired up about,
Oh,
Tara?
what am I fired up about today? Okay, so uh, I'm I'm so fired up about this Save Act, and I've like been like low key fired up about it just since the beginning when I heard about the Save Act, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't even know what the acronym stands for. Uh, what it is a set of voting regulations that are coming from the federal government side of things that are aligned with like Trump's recent, bullshit about, federalizing the election process. And there are a lot of things in the SAVE Act. The most insidious one that I'm aware of is requirements, identification requirements to vote. And those new identification requirements are that your last name has to match your birth certificate in order for you to vote. And or you can use a passport. So what, of course, that does is impact especially married women who chose
Mm-hmm.
to change their last name to their husband's last name. My husband just renewed his passport. It cost us over $200
Mm-hmm.
to renew a passport. So like not everybody has the ability and the means to get a passport, and it's going to disenfranchise thousands and thousands and thousands of women across the country, because of course, like that's literally the
Yeah.
aim here. That's literally the aim. And the whole, like the chapter that's written about the fact that this regime can't win unless they cheat. This is one of the ways that they're cheating, that they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to cheat. And the SAVE Act has been a thing that's been talked about and in committee and blah, blah, blah for a long time, but it just passed the House this
Yeah.
week, and it heads over to the Senate. Who knows when they're going to vote on it? Who knows if it will become law? But I'm just, I mean, I was talking to my daughter about it. She just turned 18. And the conclusion she took about the SAVE Act was, well, if that passes, I suppose when I get married, if I get married to a man, I won't take his last name. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a fine decision to make, buddy. Like to make that decision based on
Yeah.
like whether or not you get a chance to vote is bullshit.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty fired up about it.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, and I hate the whole act to begin with. I saw somebody call it the Save Us from Democracy Act or something like that.
Yeah,
But it like the arguments against being against it are like, well, it only costs $16 to get a driver's license. Well, I don't know where you live. I don't know how much it costs to get my driver's license because I don't pay attention. I just go do it because I have the privilege of the
right.
time, the car, the money. Like, I just go do it. There are plenty of people in Midland right now. Now, keep in mind, Michigan as a state is it's an auto state. Everybody has a car. But we say everybody has a car, but not everybody
Not
has a
everybody
car.
has a car.
Some people can't afford the car. Some people can't afford the license. Some people don't have their birth certificates anymore. Like, some people have had name changes. Like, it's not about the final cost. It's about the hoops you have to jump through and
That's right.
how many people start at the bottom of the spectrum and can't make it through all the hoops. I can make it through all the hoops, but
Yeah,
there are
not
plenty of
everybody can.
people who cannot. So you're
Well, yeah.
disenfranchising people who can't afford it.
Yeah. Well, and even a driver's license, like that's not enough in the
Yeah.
SAVE Act. If your driver's license is different than your birth certificate, you have to have something else. And it's just the other thing that just pisses me off is the spin around this, because what you hear from the Republicans is, well, all we want is for ID. All we want is so that voting is like more secure, so that we're just requiring ID. Like, why are you so upset about just requiring ID?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first of all, we do already require ID. Like, let's
Yep.
be clear about that. We just voted a couple weeks ago in a primary, and my daughter and she voted for the first time. I'm like, hey, make sure we walk over to the poll where we live really close. I said, make sure you have your driver's license. She said, why? I said, because you need your ID to vote. So we walk
Yes.
in and we hand them our driver's licenses. That's not what we're talking about. This is there. It is absolutely insidious for them to continue to say this is about voter ID. And why do the Democrats,
Mm-hmm.
why are they against voter ID? The undercurrent is like, because we want, you know, undocumented people to vote. That's not what's going on
Yeah.
at all. That's not what's going on at all. So anyhow, I'm pretty fired up about that. I think that that's, all the more reason that these statewide roles here, across the country are so important. So roles like Secretary of State here in Michigan and Attorney General are so critical. Like they've always been so important, but never more than they are currently. And so we need to be paying attention both to the SAVE Act at the federal level, but also to these elections of statewide positions that are going to stand in the breach and protect our rights, and making sure we have really great, strong people in those seats of power in our state, to help, pass, help to file the lawsuits and get these types of laws stopped in the courts if they happen to pass in this, you know, like donkey court that we have going, this horrible government that we have in place right now.
So I can for sure tell you, I looked it up on the phone.
Yeah.
While we were talking. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe 13. It's hard to tell when you get down into the eastern states. They have no requirement for a voter ID. Guess what color those states are? They're all blue.
Yeah.
So that's why they want to, and like in the majority, more than half the country has photo ID that you have to have. And there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 states that you can use non-photo ID. So more than half the country has photo voter ID. And
this is a solution looking for a problem.
Exactly.
And it's just like the means is this voter ID thing. The end is that less people are voting.
Exactly.
And again, like I'll say this on the mountaintops till the day I die. The hypocrisy of people who want to stand in the way of people voting, who are also the same people who claim that they're the most patriotic people, is just continues to be astounding. It just continues to be astounding.
And if you want to have ID for voting, I'm actually okay with that. But you make it free. You make it easily accessible. You make it as easy as possible for people to get that.
If you care about democracy, if you care about literally the founding principles of our country, then you're going to be like all about as many people who are, legal to vote, voting. Like that's what you're going to care about.
And making it as easy to vote as possible with, just like Michigan did, the early voting, the no problem absentee, like all of it. Yeah.
If you're like, I love democracy, I love this country, then you should be like, I want as many people to vote that are legal to vote as possible. Like that's how it should be. And if you're not that way, it's because you don't want as many people to vote as are legal to vote. And the reason you don't is because you can't win, if that's the case. So that's what's going on. That's literally what's going on. Anyways, fired up about that. Stay tuned as the SAVE Act makes its way through the Senate and all of that. There may be some really important action steps that we need to take related to that. So stay tuned. And speaking of positions that are standing in the breach of our democracy, there's, we talked a little bit in the last pod about how important the Secretary of State role is. Today, we're going to be talking with a candidate for Attorney General, who is also, which is also one of those positions that are absolutely critical from a state perspective in the face of what's going on in our federal government. So be paying attention to those races because they matter so much. And stay tuned for this really interesting conversation coming on up.
Today on the pod, we welcome Eli Savit. He is from Ann Arbor, Michigan, A squared, for those of you who know what that is. He was a public school teacher after undergrad and then decided to make a pivot and go to law school. He worked for Justice Sandra Day O'Connor and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg as law clerks. He was a senior legal counsel for the city of Detroit. He's currently the prosecuting attorney for Washtenaw County. And he served on a number of youth-focused boards of directors, such as Detroit's Hope Starts Here Early Childhood Initiative Stewardship Board. Wow, that's a long one. The Coalition for the Future of Detroit School Children, and the board of directors at Ypsilanti's Fly Children's Art Center. I got in trouble for saying Ypsilanti wrong last time, so I know how to say it now. He's also served on the executive committee of the Michigan Democratic Party and the executive board of the Washtenaw County Democratic Party, and he's a proud union member with the Lecturers Employee Organization. And currently, he is also a candidate for Michigan Attorney General on the Democratic ticket in the primary, which will happen April 19th at the convention in Detroit. Where you have to be a member to attend and vote, which we've said several times on the pod, so about the Secretary of State, but that's also Michigan Attorney General. So welcome to the pod, Eli.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
So is there anything that I didn't list in that bio that you really want listeners to know about you?
Well, I'm going to start with one other thing, and I may be the last Washtenaw County guest you ever have on because you got corrected for saying Ypsilanti wrong, I guess, before. And it is written A squared if you're from Ann Arbor, but if you're a real native, it is pronounced Ace Deuce. You call it Ace Deuce, not Ace
I've
squared.
never heard that.
I have never
it's
heard
Ace Deuce.
that.
So yeah, born and raised in Ann Arbor, so I can tell you that's how we read Ace square. It's Ace Deuce.
Got it.
So just yet more Washtenaw County trivia there, I guess. For you.
I swear every time we have a guest on the pod, they correct something I say. Barb Byram told me that I was saying Onondaga. Is that right? Did I say that right? I think I was calling it Onondaga, and she's like, no.
Well, I will say Washtenaw County, where I'm from, we make it pretty hard on people. We've got Ypsilanti rather than Ypsilanti. We got Milan rather than Milan, and we got Saline rather than Saline. And now you can add A squared is pronounced Ace Deuce. So.
Yep. And I did know Saline because my kid swims there a lot, but I did used to call it Saline because that's how it's spelled.
Right, exactly. And look, I'm from Washtenaw County, and my name is pronounced Ellie, but it's spelled Eli. So
you're part of the community.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm reflecting the community values there. No. Thanks so much for having me on. The only other thing that I think is important for viewers and listeners to know about me that I've done in the past in my career, and I hope we have a chance to talk a little bit about this, is in addition to all the stuff that you mentioned, I've actually served as a practicing environmental lawyer, have sued corporate polluters like DuPont and Chemours and Shell and Exxon, focusing primarily on PFAS litigation. And that's something that I think is going to be incredibly important work for the next attorney general, whoever it might be. And I've got experience bringing those cases, litigating them, and being part of the teams that have won those cases. So that's the only other thing beyond the Washtenaw County specific pronunciation that I'd mention there.
That's amazing. And it's so great to hear your just stellar resume for this office, and just in hearing about like the litigation that you've been involved in, and just how contentious I can imagine, right? It's always been. And also it makes me reflect on just the experience of being a candidate and running for office, as I've have similar experience in a couple of cycles a few years back. It's never easy, right, to be a political candidate. It's hard, and especially it's always been hard, and especially in today's climate, it's especially fraught with all the divisiveness and ugliness that goes along. So thank you for running. But what's your motivation? So what makes you kind of get up every day and just say, this is what I'm doing, I'm going to run for Attorney General?
I'm not going to give a BS politician answer to say I'd never thought about running for Attorney General before this moment in time, and I woke up one day and just realized. I mean, I'm not giving that, right? It is a job that had been floated to me for a number of years, that I'd thought seriously about, that I'd had interest in. If you're a lawyer in public service, I think that Attorney General, frankly, is almost your dream job, right? Because it's the best possible way to use your legal skills and your law license to work on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan. So it's not something that hadn't crossed my mind before. But I will tell you honestly, I hadn't really decided to do this until after the 2024 presidential election, when Donald Trump won. And, like I said, AG had been something that had been floated to me, had been in the back of my mind, right? I'm not going to give you the BS answer. But when Trump won, I had read every page of Project 2025 because I'm, I guess, a glutton for punishment. And what I saw
thanks
there,
for taking one for the team.
Yeah, right. But what I saw there in Project 2025 was a legal blueprint for decimating everything that I care about, that I hold dear, and that so many of us care about in American democracy. And I started thinking after, a week of, I guess, sort of licking my wounds and being depressed, like I think a lot of us were after the results of the 24 presidential election, I started thinking, okay, well, how can I best serve in this moment, because I know that what I don't want is to be sitting on the sidelines and have things go horribly awry and then look back in 20 or 30 years and have to look my kids, my grandkids in the eye and say, I think I could have done more. So I really started to think, like, how can I best serve at this moment? And I knew AG Nessel was term limited, and I knew attorneys general were going to play an incredibly important role in these fights. And I started thinking, okay, well, realistically, like, what do I want to see in the next Michigan attorney general? And I thought, well, it should be somebody with federal court experience, somebody who knows how the federal courts work. And I have that, of course, including working on the U.S. Supreme Court. It should be somebody who's done civil rights and voting rights cases. It should be somebody with an environmental background. It should be somebody that has done consumer and worker protection cases, because reading Project 2025, I knew that all of this stuff was going to be in the crosshairs of the Trump administration. And so I really started thinking, okay, well, you've got all that background. And so I reached the conclusion that honestly, the best way I could be involved at this moment, I could serve at this moment, would be to throw my hat in the ring for state attorney general. And that's really when and why I decided to do this, because again, I don't think any of us want to be looking back on the wreckage of the democracy that we once had and think that we could have been doing more.
Yeah. I can relate to that a lot. I think a lot of people can, but I just remember getting up at 4 a.m. to check election results. We'd stayed up pretty late, and it was not looking good, but it wasn't conclusive. So I got up at 4 a.m. just because I couldn't sleep, checked the results, saw that mainly my big thing was also finding out if our friend Elena had won her county commission seat, which she did. So that was a good part. But so then I spent the next 2 hours just doom spiraling because I couldn't go back to sleep, and I was trying not to wake my husband up. And when he finally did get up, I just broke down. I'm like, I can't do another 4 years of this. I've been organizing since 2016 off and on. I can't do it. And he let me cry on him and let me get it all out. And then by the end of the day, I was like, okay, what are we doing? Because that's just who the three of us and so many other people that we know are. That's what we have to do. We can't sit on the sidelines, like you said.
Right. Exactly. And, look, it's been really heartening to see actually so many people across the state and across the country mobilizing. And, I've been to 65 plus counties. We're going to hit a bunch more in the UP. That's why I'm in my car right now this weekend. And it's great to see so many people, even in really deep red areas, organizing. The No Kings rallies in small towns and rural communities have had sort of off the charts attendance. And that's something that's heartening, because ultimately, lawyers can do their part. And that's what I'm running for attorney general part to do. But really, at the end of the day, it does come down to people and where the people are. And it's going to be all of us together that hopefully save our democracy.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying as part of your motivation, thinking about how can I best serve, right, in this time. I'm just picturing you reading Project 2025, the election happens, and asking the question, what is my best role in this moment in time? How do I personally, with all my credentials and skills and experiences, meet this moment? Because, as we say all the time, the antidote to despair is action. And fear and desperation grow when you're lonely, when you're just sort of in your own kind of spaces. So figuring out your best magic, how can you best serve, putting yourself out there to do that, even in these really divisive times, super inspirational. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks,
and that's what this podcast was born out of. Sarah and I had already talked about writing a book about the things that we had done in Midland, and we still plan on doing that. But, the election happened, and it's we got to do something now. It's going to take time to write a book. So let's do a podcast. Let's create our blueprint. Let's start helping people now. Because it's, we had the idea that we were going to have 4 years of Kamala Harris, and we would have a cushion, time to work on what, this building blue power, helping people do that. And there's no time. It has to be now.
Right. Well, thank you guys for doing this, and I look forward to the book whenever it comes out.
Whenever we get time to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Every spare moment is
As soon as I have time to
wonderful.
hire a social media manager and an editor and a scheduler and So the Trump regime has attempted and unfortunately succeeded in some ways a lot of actions that hurt Americans and are destroying our democracy, just like we've been talking about. One of the main reasons that they have not achieved all that they've wanted to in Project 2025, like you were talking about, is because of states' attorneys general. So they're standing up for the rule of law. What role do you see the Attorney General of Michigan playing in protecting Michiganders from the worst extremes of the Trump regime?
Yeah, and this is absolutely crucial. Attorneys General have been on the front line, and our own AG, Dana Nessel, has done a fantastic job of fighting back against this administration, as have Democratic AGs from around the country. And look, despite having a very inhospitable, I'll be polite there, Supreme Court right now, U.S. Supreme Court right now, there have been a lot of victories, especially in the lower courts. I think that the most recent estimates for the amount of money that has been returned to Michigan as a result of AG Nessel's involvement in federal lawsuits against, for example, the arbitrary and capricious federal funding cuts has been over $2 billion. $2 billion recovered for our community because AG Nessel stepped up for the state of Michigan and litigated against the Trump administration. There's other examples of success too. The reason that we do not have the National Guard in the streets of Chicago and Portland and Los Angeles is because the state AGs of Oregon and California and Illinois sued the Trump administration in court, and this one went actually all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and despite being a very conservative court, they were able to secure a victory there. Now, why are state AGs so important? Well, state AGs are the one actor in a state that when the federal government violates the law and harms the people of their state, can go into court on behalf of that state, on behalf of its people, and sue this administration. And very frequently, they are the only potential plaintiff that is situated to do that. When you have widespread harm, something that impacts a state, it really does fall to the state attorney general to go into court and to litigate. And I see this being, frankly, of increasing importance as we're seeing some new stuff coming out of the Trump administration. One of the lawsuits that had been filed recently has been an incredibly courageous lawsuit by AG Keith Ellison in Minnesota in response to the ICE occupation of Minneapolis. And he is suing, challenging the federal government's tactics with respect to ICE. President Trump's use of ICE, frankly, is a personal paramilitary force. The fact that ICE has been operating in a dangerous manner behind masks and without insignia, throwing people into unmarked vans for sometimes nothing more than writing an op-ed, which we can talk about at length here, and also their use of force against bystanders and protesters. That is an AG-initiated lawsuit by Keith Ellison. And, actually, we've been proud to support it. We joined cities and counties across the nation to support AG Ellison's lawsuit there in the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's office. So I think, there's been a lot of success in the federal funding lawsuits, and I think it's going to be increasingly important for state AGs to be on the front lines when we're dealing with things like civil rights violations, and that is really, at the core of the Minnesota lawsuit that I mentioned. I think about things like the racial profiling that ICE is engaged in. And I think state AGs need to be on the front line of challenging that. Suppression of speech, suppression of dissent. All of this is stuff that harms the people of our state. And then there's other stuff that actually takes time during a presidential administration to get off the ground, such as their attempt to dismantle labor protections, union organizing protection, environmental protections. And state AGs are going to be able to challenge those potential rules coming out of, for example, the National Labor Relations Board, which President Trump is packing with anti-union ideologues coming out of the Environmental Protection Agency, which is an environmental protection agency in name only now and really operates as an adjunct of the fossil fuel industry, right? We need state AGs that are going to stand up and say, no, we should be regulating climate change. We should be protecting workers' rights to organize. We should be standing up for consumer protection. So this federal litigation piece has been important so far, and it's going to only get more important, I think, in the coming years. And, I know I've given a lot of stuff in response to this question, but the last thing that I will say is we're going to have a presidential election coming up in 2028. And I do think we're going to have elections. The question is, how fair are they going to be? I can tell you right now, I am very concerned that President Trump and the Republican Party are going to challenge ballots out of Detroit and Flint, just like they did in 2020. They are going to try to suppress the votes. We saw just, this week, I think the president threatened to nationalize elections in, let's just call it what it is, not states, but majority black cities, like Detroit, Atlanta. I think you mentioned Philadelphia, right? And who the next AG is going to be charged with either letting that go or litigating against it. And what I tell people that I talk about this race from out of state, about why they should care about who the Michigan Attorney General is, say, imagine it's election night 2028, right? There's a Republican on the ballot, there's a Democrat on the ballot. Right. The race is close. It's going to come down to Michigan and a couple of other swing states. And the Republican Party challenges the vote from Detroit and is trying to throw out tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of ballots. Who do you want to be the Attorney General of the state of Michigan at that point? It's going to be tremendously important who's sitting in this seat come November of 2028. And that's something we have to start planning for now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ellie, you just made my blood pressure go up by like
I know, me too.
We're talking about 2028, but it's so important. I mean, it occurs to me as we've been talking to folks who are running for Secretary of State, and I'm talking with you running for Attorney General. Like, these roles have always been important, but my God, never more important than right now, both of them. And part of what we have to do is, like you're saying, like, turn people on to the idea of they're really important. They're never more important than ever. They're standing, in the breach of our democracy in our country and the government that we stand on. Not just like in 2026, but for the sake of 2028.
Right.
Yeah, that's I'm going to have to take a walk after this interview to calm down a bit. But while we're on that subject, right, and just like the critical nature of this, we know that, whether it's been through litigation or community programs you've been involved in or legislation that you've supported supported LGBTQIA rights, you've supported prosecuting violence against women and children, you've supported common gun sense reform, abortion rights, environmental rights, other progressive initiatives. There's so much out there, right? It's just like, it's just overwhelming, the amount of like battlefields that are out there right now. So I'm wondering if you could cast yourself into like the seat of Attorney General for Michigan, and it's January of 2027, right? So the first sort of month of you being in that role. What do you think are the first and the most major battlefields that you'll be paying attention to right away?
Well, look, it frankly depends on what the Trump administration has done that week. What are they trying to do? Are they trying to attack our schools and the Department of Education again, and maybe special education students through the dismantling of civil rights protections? Are they doing something bad on the environment? Is there another occupation of an American city like we saw in Minneapolis? I don't know. And I want to be honest that in a lot of ways, the Attorney General's job with respect to the federal government is reactive. If there is something that violates the law and harms Michiganders, we're going to be in court if the federal government is doing it. And by the way, I will say this. I know we're all Democrats here, right? But if that happens, by the way, in 2029 with a Democratic president, I'd do the same thing. It's a very simple test, right? Does it harm Michiganders, and is it illegal? And if so, we'll see you in court, right? So I'll say that it depends on what's coming down out of D.C. And I know, I've talked to AG Nessel a few times about just ordinary stuff, right? And one time I called her about a consumer protection case that we were looking at together, and she called me back a few days later, and she said, I'm sorry, I haven't called you back. The Trump administration tried to dismantle the Department of Education, so I've been kind of busy on that. And I'm like, Dana, I get it, So I know that a lot of this is going to be reactive, and again, I want to give kudos to the work that so many state AGs are doing. I will say a couple of other things. We talked about at length the Trump administration and the need for state AGs to be pushing back against them. I want to highlight one of the things I will start on day one of my administration, which is planning for the 2028 elections. We know that there are going to be challenges to the vote, and we need to be prepared for the various ways in which that can occur. Does it look like stationing ICE agents outside of polls in order to disincentivize people from voting? Does it look like legal challenges to the way elections are being conducted and seeking to shut down polling places on election day? Are there going to be challenges to mail-in ballots and no reason absentee ballots like we have here? Does the president try to issue this and enforce the SAVE Act through an executive order, as he's threatened to do multiple times, right? There are a number, I can go on and on and on. And there are a number of potential threats to our elections and our democracy that we need to start planning for in 2027. Frankly, we need to start planning for it now. And that means getting the various actors around the table, Secretary of State's office, Attorney General's office, Governor's office, law enforcement, right? And our partners with, I'd imagine, the ACLU, voting rights organizations, and think about, okay, what is our plan if X happens? What is our plan if Y happens? And in election season of 2028, I hope everything goes smoothly. I hope I'm being alarmist about this, right? I don't think I am, but I hope I am. But I want to be prepared. I want to have draft complaints written so that if there's a challenge during election day at a polling place, we can go into court and get that shut down and allow votes to continue to be cast and don't have to waste precious hours writing a complaint and researching the law, right? That's what we need to be doing, having tabletop exercises, drafting complaints that may never be filed, drafting motions that may never be filed. And that's one thing we're going to start doing on day one of my administration as Attorney General. I want to also, though, move beyond the Trump administration because, believe it or not, there's other things going on in the world, other challenges that we face. And I just want to mention two of them. One thing that I am tremendously concerned about is the fact that we have been asleep at the wheel with respect to artificial intelligence and the way that it is potentially impacting our society. We've seen already allegations that artificial intelligence and chatbots have encouraged people to commit suicide. We've seen, Grok on the X platform engage in what I would call basically making non-consensual pornography and adjacent to sexual assault, where it unclothes people and creates very realistic images of them unclothed from pictures that were uploaded. That's concerning. It's, of course, especially concerning when you're talking about children. And I know AGs have already been working to challenge that. But there's other ways in which AI is just really going to change our society. And I'm not a Luddite. I'm not saying we can put this back in the bottle, which we can't anyway, even if we wanted to. But just like any powerful tool, we need regulation. And one of the things that I am concerned about, we talk about the cost of living all the time right now. And the AG can't bring prices down or wages up by themselves. But what we can do is stop predatory corporations from using AI to jack prices up even higher than they should be, and also stop bosses from engaging in wage theft and denying people the money that they are owed. And with respect to AI, one thing that's been tremendously concerning to me is the proliferation of artificial intelligence-based individualized pricing. What does that mean? Well, these companies have all of this data on you. And by the way, the prevalence with which people are using chatbots means that they probably have a database which is unrivaled in human history of people's intimate personal thoughts and desires. Why is a lot of this stuff free? Because they want to monetize it. And we've seen companies already announcing this very publicly, that they are going to stop charging everybody the same price for a good and service, and instead engage in personalized pricing based on the data that they have on you, and charge you the absolute maximum pain point that you'll be willing to pay for a good or a service. And I want to just give one example of this. Delta Airlines announced this, that they were going to be doing this this past summer, right? They said, we're going to be moving away from standard airline tickets, and we're going to start using an AI algorithm based on what we know about you to charge you a personalized price for your ticket. If you think about what that means, given the amount of data that companies have on us, that could mean that, let's say you have a parent that died in another city, in Boston, say, and AI algorithm is going to know this, right? All the data they have, they'll know your father just passed away, and you've got to buy a ticket to Boston to get back for that funeral. Ticket could cost $300 for the person searching for that right before you online, but it could cost you $2,000 because they know you will pay just about anything.
You have to get there. Yeah.
You got to get there. You'll pay anything, right? And to me, that's predatory. To me, that's price gouging. It shouldn't matter if a human being is doing it and taking advantage of what somebody is going through and their personal characteristic, or if it's an AI algorithm that is doing it. And so I've said, we need broader regulation of AI generally across the board. Prevent this non-consensual pornography, right? Put mental health safeguards on chatbots. Hold the companies liable if they engage in negligent behavior, put a product out there without the appropriate safeguards, but also need to protect consumers and need to protect against this sort of AI-based price gouging. And we need legislation on this. But one thing that the Michigan Attorney General actually has under the Consumer Protection Act, the Michigan Consumer Protection Act, is rulemaking authority, meaning that you can issue rules about what the current Michigan Consumer Protection Act means without getting new legislation. And I promised that during my first 100 days in office, I'm going to issue a comprehensive suite of rules under the Michigan Consumer Protection Act, preventing things like AI-based price gouging and deceptive marketing practices and the like. And I'm quite confident that the Act gives me the legal authority to do that. And I say I'm going to do that immediately, because the time to do that, frankly, I think the time to regulate AI was years ago when this very powerful tool first came out there. We've been asleep at the wheel, and we don't have a moment to waste. Even with everything that's coming out of DC, we've got to also keep our eye on the ball and make sure that this incredibly powerful emerging technology can be harnessed for good and not harm our communities. And the last thing, again, there's so much stuff, but the last thing is we've got to keep our eye on the ball too with respect to our environment. Just over the last few months and weeks, the Trump administration has issued proposed rules which would entirely eliminate climate change regulation in this country. By the way, this isn't going to do anything for the economy, because so many industries have made plans based on the idea that there's going to be fair, reasonable climate change regulations, greenhouse gas regulations, and you upset their investments when you do this. So it doesn't hurt. It doesn't help anybody except for perhaps the coal industry. And we need to be fighting back against that. It is only because of state AGs actually in the first place that we have climate change regulation in the first place in this country. In a case called Massachusetts versus EPA, Michigan, which has 90% of the nation's fresh water supply, where our natural resources are treasured, we need to be on the front lines of fighting back against this. And then the other thing is, I mentioned at the start, I've been a practicing environmental lawyer, litigating PFAS cases, and PFAS are just everywhere. And it is so crucial that we hold the companies that misled us about the dangers of PFAS and hid the harms, hold them accountable, because this is probably one of the most widespread contaminations that we've seen in American history. These forever chemicals that are carcinogenic and are everywhere and are in everything. And it, just like so much else, it was corporate malfeasance that resulted in that, and we need to hold them accountable. Michigan has more identified PFAS sites than any state in the country. I can go on and on. I want to mention one more thing, actually, which is wage theft. We talk about affordability, right? Wage theft, which is bosses stealing from their workers, is the most common form of theft in the United States. And we've got to do something about that. We've got to take that seriously. I've pledged to start a workers' rights unit in the office of the Department of Attorney General. That's work I've done before in the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office. We actually have the only economic justice unit in a prosecutor's office in the entire state, which focuses specifically on worker and consumer protection. And we're going to do the same thing in the AG's office because we need to address wage theft head on. We need to address unsafe working conditions head on. The AG, like I said, can't bring wages up alone, and we've got a wealth inequality problem in this country. But what I can do is use every single legal tool in my arsenal to make sure that workers are getting paid what they're owed at the end of the day, because it shouldn't matter whether it's your boss stealing from you or if it's somebody to pick your pocket on the street. Your family is still out money, and that needs to be treated seriously.
So many things. So I actually just heard a news story related to the Olympics that had to do with PFAS, and they used to have a ski wax that had that forever chemical in it. And when they discovered finding PFAS in like really remote areas that you wouldn't think, it would be, they couldn't figure out for a long time why these chemicals were in these remote areas. And they discovered it was because of like cross-country skis and the wax that was on cross-country skis. So it literally is everywhere, and it's getting everywhere. And once it's there, it's there. It's just there. Yeah.
Right.
Scary.
And it gets into the water table, and again, it has just followed the pattern of corporate malfeasance that we've seen over and over again in this country, starting with the tobacco industry. The opioid epidemic was caused by companies hiding the addictive harms and mismarketing prescription pills as though they were addiction-proof. And it is the same thing with PFAS. There were scientists inside at 3M and DuPont raising alarm bells decades before we knew about the magnitude of this crisis, and they hit it out of a profit motive, and those companies need to be held responsible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One thing you hit on that I think is really important, and something that we talk about in our own organizing spaces and mutual aid groups, is this idea of planning not only for the 2028 election, but for the election this year. I fully expect Trump to push whatever he can to try to meddle with the 2026 election so that we don't get Democratic, the Democrats don't take over the House, and or that if they do, they don't get the huge majority I think they could get. Because, and that's, we have talked about, like, what are we going to do? What can we do? So, I would love to have a conversation with Dana, Jocelyn, and Gretchen and find out what their plans are for 2026.
It's so important.
So when you ran as a prosecuting attorney in Washtenaw County, the first time that you ran, you were in a contested primary. So you had a contested election, but that's all Democrats. And then for the two election cycles that you ran for the Washtenaw County prosecuting attorney, you were uncontested. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. So my question is, what can you tell us and Democratic voters, just to, let us know, like, what are your plans to take on whatever Republican that they bring forth for the general election? And how do you plan to build blue power across the state to ensure that the AG's office stays in Democratic hands in these vital years while Trump is still in office?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. And one thing that I think is a strength of mine is I say what I believe. And I do not believe in this playbook of running in a primary election and saying one thing and then, trying to moderate for the general election. Because really what people hate right now about politicians, frankly, that they see from both parties, is people that aren't honest and people that don't say what they believe. And I think that's a strength of mine. My basic message as AG, and you heard me say this isn't partisan. I don't care who it is who is screwing you over, whether it is your boss stealing from you, whether it is a corporate polluter who is contaminating your local water supply, or whether it is a corporation that's price gouging you, or if it is the president of the United States himself, whichever party that president may be from. If somebody is screwing you over, if somebody is harming you as a Michigander, I'm going to be in court fighting back. And that's my message in the primary, in this convention race. And it's going to be my message in the general election, too. And I think that is a strength. People are tired of politicians who don't say what they believe. And look, you mentioned my electoral history, and it is true. I have not had a Republican challenger in either of my 2 election cycles, right? Now, I'm not going to pretend that's because all Republicans like me, right, or agree with me on everything. But I can tell you that I'm not the only person who has been uncontested on the ballot. And in each of the general elections that I have run, I have gotten more total votes than any other candidate on the ballot countywide in all my elections, which I know includes independents and Republicans as well. And I know, by the way, that Republicans vote for me. Now, how do I know this? Well, one thing is I go to Republican communities. People, sometimes they want Washtenaw and they think it's just Ann Arbor, People's Republic of Ann Arbor, right, and everything like that.
Yeah.
Washtenaw is a diverse community. It is a blue county, right? It is hard to win as a Republican county-wide, but we have a lot of rural Republican areas, and I go to those areas too. And I go to the township board meetings, and we have expungement events out there, and I talk to people about what we're seeing in terms of crime. And then I also talk to them about the opportunities that we have available for second chances in the prosecutor's office. And I can tell you that those are very popular even in Republican communities. They may not agree with me about my decision to litigate against the Trump administration on a number of things, but you know what? They've got a brother or an uncle or a cousin that needs their criminal record expunged, that has done everything right for years, and it's the most popular thing that we do in Republican areas, and people like talking to me about it. We're all people at the end of the day, and everybody has been impacted in different ways by the system and has family members that are. And I've built trust and credibility in communities by saying what I think and then offering our services to everybody across the board that people need, not just Democrats need, not just the Republicans need. And here's the other thing that I'll say. I know the Republicans vote for me because actually in 2024, my last election cycle, nobody filed to run as a Republican for prosecutor, right? But then there was the internal war within the Republican Party between Christina Caramo forces and anti-Caramo forces, right? I don't know if you guys remember this. And the most recent county-wide nominee gets automatic Republican voting privileges at the Republican convention, right? So nobody had filed to run as a Republican in Washtenaw County for prosecutor. And the Caramo people realized, wait a minute, if we can get somebody on the ballot there, just on the ballot there, right, then they'll have special voting privileges for Christina Caramo at the next convention. So they put somebody up. And then the anti-Caramo people put somebody up, too, because they didn't want the Caramo person to get, the voting privileges. And they both filed as write-ins. And usually you don't count write-ins unless they're declared write-ins. But there were 2 declared write-ins this time running against each other in the Republican primary. They were both running campaigns. They each needed like 700 votes or something to qualify for the ballot and to get the nomination. But it meant that our clerk, Larry Kestenbaum, actually had to count up every single write-in on the Republican line. So after the primary election, they do their canvass. He calls me and he says, well, congratulations, you're officially unopposed in November. Neither one of them came close to getting the requisite number of write-in votes. They needed 700 something. They each got about 200. He goes, here's the interesting thing. You finished third in the Republican primary. They each got about 200. 25 people, he said, actually wrote your name in on the Republican line of the ballot. And he said, and then fourth place was Donald Trump, who had 4 votes. And so I said, Larry, are you telling me that I beat Donald Trump in a Republican primary? And he says, well, I guess that's kind of a fair comparison because, I mean, neither one of you declared for Washtenaw County Prosecutor, right? And you got more votes than him. It's a small sample size. I realize that, right? And it's a
fun anecdote, though. Not gonna lie.
It's a fun anecdote, but I do think it reflects something deeper, which is that there were 25 people. I mean, everybody knew I was going to get the Democratic nomination, right? I was unopposed. But there were 25 people that were voting Republican and wanted to vote for me. But they didn't want to vote for me as a Democrat, right? They wanted to write my name in to continue having me as prosecutor on the Republican line. 25 people across our county did that. Maybe because, they felt that they'd been treated fairly in our justice system. Maybe because they had a son or a daughter go through our expungement program or one of our problem-solving courses that gets people opportunities at second chances, right? Maybe they just heard me speak and say, well, he says what he means, right? And I like that. And even though I don't agree with him on a lot of the political stuff, I think he'll be fair in the justice system. That's what I bring to the table. And actually, if you look at my election results, including my undeclared run on the Republican side for Washtenaw County Prosecutor, I think that the data proves it. And I think if we say what we mean, we show that we're willing to stand up and fight for people, I think we'll attract votes across the political spectrum on the ticket this year. That's what I think the Democratic Party needs to do, get back to. And that's what I bring to the table.
Yeah, you're reminding me of some organizing work that we have done up here in the past couple of years, because I imagine that if the Republicans in your county were upset, like super upset by you and what you stand for, they would have found, like it would have been like a high priority to find somebody to run, against you and get the votes. And and that's happened up here. So that happened for us in the clerk's office, kind of in a flipped sort of way, where, Midland has we have a really great clerk. She's a Republican. She's awesome. And, she's been doing this for literally 30 years. And like the mechanics of voting are so important right now to get right. So we were like, that's fine. Like our current clerk can stay our current clerk, and we're not going to like work really hard. We have other offices that we need to find candidates for and run against and all that. We really ascribe mostly to the idea, like we want a candidate in every box on the ballot. But for that one, we were just like, like we're good, like where we are, and it's not partisan. It's just like we have the right person in place for that. So we didn't make any kind of moves in that direction.
Yeah, and look, I mean, honestly, things like clerk and prosecutor, obviously we run on partisan tickets. I'm a strong Democrat, but the job, and I have my values that I bring to the table there. But the job itself, you shouldn't be applying standards differently based on, whether somebody's a Democrat or a Republican. Yeah, but the point is, like, you apply the discretion across the board equally, right? You treat everybody fairly and the same, regardless of their political persuasion. And, obviously you bring your values in as a Democrat or Republican, but elections, the justice system, they really should be nonpartisan.
That's right. Yeah, I love that. So our last question is usually a fun question that helps kind of our listeners get to know all of us a little bit differently. So the fun question I'm going to ask. So Ellie, you're in the car right now.
Yes.
You're running for a statewide office. I'm sure you're spending a whole lot of time in the car. You said you're on the way to the UP, or are you coming back from the UP?
on the way to the UP. Yeah.
On the way to the UP. Have you crossed the bridge yet?
No. We're just
getting on the road.
Yeah.
So knowing you're in the car and knowing that that's got to be a huge part of your life right now. And Jennifer and I, we've spent a lot of time together in cars, just doing lots of road trips and across the state, but also across the country, quite honestly. So my fun question is, what is your go-to road trip snack? Like you're getting in the car for a day. What are you bringing in the car for a snack?
Okay. I am actually going to flip this question a little bit because I'll tell you, my go-to snack is not that interesting. It's like beef jerky, right? Standard road trip food. But here's the thing. I am a fried pickle aficionado. It's both me and Simone Biles' favorite snacks, I learned, which, very few people ever confuse me and Simone Biles. But we both love fried pickles. And so I have been on a quest as I travel the state. If I'm staying something, if I have an opportunity to go into a local pub, something like that, I always get the fried pickles, whatever iteration they are on the menu. So now I will say honestly, and this is a little bit homerism, the standard for me in terms of fried pickles is set by Fraser's Pub in Ann Arbor. And it's because their pickle fries, like they're cut like McDonald's fries, rather than the whole like pickle spear, which sometimes can like result in like the hot oil exploding in your mouth. It's like that's not great.
Yeah.
The breading to pickle ratio is sometimes off, but when you do it as like fries, they're actually like really good. You get a good breading to pickle ratio. It's a proper temperature throughout. So that remains number one, but I am always on the lookout for the best fried pickles in the state. And, I've had a lot of them over the course of the last 10 months or so.
Well, I have to tell you, the best fried pickles in the state, because I am also a fried pickle connoisseur.
It's true. She is very much.
They
So
were
just the three of you. Ellie,
apparently.
Jennifer, and Simone.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So the best ones were at a restaurant in East Tawas that does not exist anymore. It is so sad. They had dill pickle soup. They had the best fried pickles. They had burgers that were the size of your head. So very sad that they are no longer there. That also the best pasty place in Michigan, and I will probably get in trouble for this, was in East Tawas as well. It was called Marmor Gourmet. It no longer exists. So apparently I am the only one that thought that they were the best pasties in the world. But yes, I'm a fried pickle connoisseur. I don't like the spears. I might try the fry cut ones. I prefer the chips because you can just put one whole one in your mouth and you don't get, my teeth don't meet in the middle. So when I have to bite through something, I end up with a mess. But my go-to snack, which is not very exciting either, but if we're going to go on a road trip, I like to stop at the gas station. I like to get a 20-ounce Coke. And then I like to have either or maybe both, because if it's a long trip, you need multiple snacks. A bag of combos, the pretzel kind, or pizza kind, the pepperoni pizza kind, and then a bag of the Flips chocolate-covered pretzels. And those are things that I will never eat at any other time, but they are definitely my road trip snack.
Okay, good to know. Well, I don't have an opinion about fried pickles. So maybe that should have been my fun question. How do you feel about fried pickles? But my go-to road trip snack has evolved over the years. So when I was in college, we went on lots of road trips with just college friends, and we always literally had to have Twizzlers. We had to. It was like, stop and get Twizzlers. Do we have Twizzlers? We can't go if we don't have Twizzlers. That was the thing. But I realized that if I'm on a road trip, I will just eat whatever. If it's around, it's something about being in the car, and I got to just be eating. I don't know. And so what I've been doing lately is trying to have healthy things in the car, because it doesn't matter what it is to me as long as I'm eating it. So if I can grab a bag of carrots or something versus a bag of some chips or whatever, then I'll be just as happy, just as long as I'm eating something in the car on the road trip. So,
and I can confirm she usually brings some sort of carrots, cauliflower, green peppers, red peppers, whatever, all cut up, ready to go. Some hummus with you.
That is wise. That is wise. Yeah. So you're much more virtuous.
Yeah. That's right. Awesome. Well, Ellie, thank you so much for joining our pod today. I really appreciate it. Your time is so precious. You're literally on the way up to the UP right now, pulled over to have this conversation, and we're just so grateful for it. How can we tell our listeners to find out more about your campaign?
So our website is eliformichigan.com, ELIFOR Michigan.com. If you go to the website, you can get involved in a variety of ways. Most importantly, we hope that people will sign up for the Michigan Democratic Party by March 20th. It's free. We've got a link right on our website. And then vote for us on April 19th in Detroit. That's how we get the nomination. That's the first step to winning this thing. Obviously, you can donate, you can volunteer, you can do all the things with the campaign. But if you liked what you heard and you live in Michigan, please do those two things. Sign up for the Michigan Democratic Party, and then make plans to be there on April 19th in Detroit.
Thank you. That's great.
Awesome. We'll see you there.
Yeah, we'll see you in Detroit. Maybe we'll stop in, Ace Deuce.
Ace Deuce.
Ace Deuce for some fried pickles on the way down to Detroit or on the way back.
I don't even care if it's out of the way. I want to go now.
Yeah. We'll take a picture and send it to you. So, yeah, thank you again for joining us today, and thanks for all of our listeners for tuning in to this important conversation. Once again, we're the Beyond Resistance Pod, where we share hard-won insights to build blue power in red communities and start winning. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody. You can listen to the Beyond Resistance podcast on all major platforms. Leave us a review to boost this episode and help us reach more blue dots and red seas. Follow us on social media and like, share, comment to increase our reach. Subscribe to our Patreon and gain access to our private Discord channel and make monetary donations of support through Venmo. You can find all of this and more at beyondresistancepod.com. Beyond Resistance is a Beyond Resistance LLC production. Producers Jennifer Austin and Sarah Schultz. Editing Jennifer Austin. Theme song We Run the Room by Shadow Kitten.